Okay, so basically what I'm trying to train here is to spread the fish out. The fish have been fed from the side of the cage just with hand scoops, and not very well, because feed was always coming straight into the bottom of the cage right here and getting blown out. So that probably was affecting FCR, as well as trying to get good spread the fish out and start making them school. So you can probably see them schooling now if I try and put my glasses over the top of the screen. You can see that the fish aren't, we're about 5 minutes into the feeding, 4.5 minutes into the feeding, and this cage, all the cages are on reduced rations at the moment, but I've changed it from going 3 meals or 2 meals at one day and 1 meal the next day to 1 meal every 2 days, in an effort to try and get some better spread and better feed into the smaller fish near the end of the meal. Obviously you'd be wanting to feed to satiation, but at the moment for various reasons we're not doing that. Some of it's to do with trying to slow down the growth because the market price isn't very good at the moment, so not the greatest decision, but at least by doing this we'll be able to ensure at least even slower growth over the cages. So what I'm trying to instill is spreading the fish out, getting enough feed into the fish so that everybody gets at least a few pellets, and training the fish so that they're not all crowding to the side of the pen at the start of feeding, and that they start moving into a nice schooling pattern when they're feeding. So this cage is taking 200, it should probably take somewhere in the region of 300, if not a bit more. Actually it's supposed to take about 425 every 2 days, but this cage I'm giving them 200 every 2 days, which is a 50% ration. So as you can see, the fish are now starting to calm down, not as much thrashing, a lot more even feeding behavior. And although we have cameras, but we're not using them because the fish are getting nowhere near satiated. So I'm basically training just from surface reaction and to train the fish to feed in a more calm manner. So we're using the little IAS blowers, and unfortunately this IAS blower is a little bit small for the 11mm pellet. We have some bigger blowers coming which will help, but for now it's a good training tool. Everybody likes feeding the fish because they don't have sore arms at the end of it. So I'll try and get some footage of guys at another farm feeding, where basically they've been using salad bowls and tossing the feed right in at the edge of the cage. And of course, probably at least 50% of the FCR problem has been that most of the pellets are either going to the larger fish only in the hand feeding scenario, or at least 30% probably at the beginning of the feeding is getting blown out the side of the cage. So good little training tool, the IAS blower. In the future when we get back to full rations we'll be using cameras as well, and we'll be feeding to full satiation. Fish starting to calm down quite nicely now. Still surface reaction, so you know that while there's surface reaction there's feeding going on beneath. So I'm not worried or concerned at all about pellet loss, as long as we keep that circle a good distance away from the edge of the cage and spread the feed in a constant manner. We'll have a good feed, a better feed conversion rate, and hopefully more even growth across the board. Small fish are now getting a chance to feed. Bigger fish have probably, the biggest fish have probably left the school and started to head down to the bottom, which will become obvious when we start using the cameras. But as you can see, way less surface reaction. Fish have calmed right down. not rushing all to the one feeding spot. So very good, an improvement on the feeding for sure. I'll try and put my goggles over the top of my lens so you can see into the school of it. So this is at the number 2 farm in Long Angkar. I'll give you a bit of a pan around of the lake. This little house here is the guard house. We have fishermen that come out at night and try and steal the fish. So every site has got a little guard house. This site actually has 60 cages spread out up the arm here. And the accommodation for all the crew is in around the corner up there against the shoreline. So we have another farm down towards this end of the lake. That's called number 4 farm. And over here you can see, if I can zoom in, way down there over the top of the boat is the new AKVA farm. Just maybe starting to come into view. New AKVA farm down there. And then if I pan around, a little bit hazy today, so if I pan around, this is the Long Angkar reservoir, and over here is Long Angkar proper itself, and down there is the dam, and it's the headwaters of the Yellow River. So that's the dam. It's I think the first dam on the Yellow River, which is a fairly culturally significant river in China. So we have to be environmentally friendly, which is a good thing. Pan back around. That's Mr. Wu feeding. He's the production manager of Long Angkar. One day we'll be the big boss. As you can see, the fish are not as calm as I'd like them at the end of a meal, but we're getting close to the end of the ration. But basically what was happening was they were feeding maybe 3 or 4 bags, then coming back in the evening and feeding another 3 or 4 bags in an effort not to waste feed. But the stress involved with that was probably wasting the feed just as bad. So this style of feeding, that's 1 meal a day or 1 meal every second day, should reduce stress, should increase our fish health, and hopefully, like I say, spread a little bit better feed spread to all the fish throughout the population. So I'm quite happy with the improvements. I think everybody else is quite happy with the improvements as well. Took a little bit of convincing to say you could feed this much feed at 1 meal. The only main problem coming from this in the future will be in July and August. I'm a little worried about the oxygen load. So we'll look at that in July and August. Right now it's the end of May. Okay? Well done. Excellent. Okay.